Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today is episode 59 of Teams on Air, and today we'll be talking about intelligent communication, taking the next step with calling plans in Microsoft Teams. And I have a special guest with me, Marc Pottier. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Thanks. So before we get started, I'd like to call out a couple of things. We are live, and so right next to Marc, you'll see the Microsoft Pulse going on. We'd love to get to know you better, so make sure that you fill that out. And if you're joining us on demand, we do post all our episodes on our YouTube channel, so make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can watch this episode along with all the other episodes that we've produced there as well. And so if you like the episode, make sure that you give us a thumbs up. All right, so now let's get started. Marc, Thanks again for joining us today. Now, you are one of my colleagues here at Microsoft.
Yep.
So please tell me a little bit about your background and how you started working on Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, I started working on Microsoft Teams about a year and a half ago, so before we did our initial launch in March. And I joined to take care of pretty much the calling space. They needed somebody to rethink how calling was going to work in Microsoft Teams, and so that was an opportunity to step up and really do something new with it. My team also heads up all the people features within Microsoft Teams. So we do all the people searches, the app mentions, bringing more rich data about people and making it more contextual to folks within Microsoft Teams as well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, you have an interesting educational background. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was a while ago. My background is cognitive science, so it's computer science and psychology. And I've always had an emphasis on looking at user experience and trying to deliver the best experience for customers. But along the way, I've also dabbed in recommendation systems. So I worked at a large company nearby on the personalization team, so looking at how to bring products that are really relevant to folks. And also started a couple of companies in text analytics and predictive modeling. So there's a lot of richness there that comes when we start thinking about intelligent communications, about how do we take content and make it really personal for individuals and surface up the content that's most relevant to folks to really help them out in their day-to-day work.
Yeah, that's really relevant to intelligent communications, and so I'm glad that we have experts like yourself working on it. All right, so tell me from your perspective, what is intelligent communications?
So intelligent communications is the next step in sort of unified communications, right? So we've been talking about unified communications for a long time. We've had Skype for Business, we've had calling and meetings built into that, and also sort of chat. But really, we haven't had the collaboration hub that Microsoft Teams offers. And what we found is Microsoft Teams, since its launch in March, has just really been growing very, very quickly. We found a huge thirst for an environment where people can come together and really work together hand in hand and collaborate on projects in a very seamless fashion. And today it's mostly text-based, right? But we want to reach a point where all the communication channels, whether that be calling or meetings, are equally represented within this single collaboration hub. And the opportunity there is, once we have collaboration and communications combined in a single application that's cloud-based, we can start bringing things like AI, machine learning, analytics to bear on all that content and really do interesting and intelligent things for customers.
Yeah, we actually have a vision video of intelligent communications. So let's take a look at Microsoft's vision for intelligent communications in a little bit more detail.
Unified communications is a term lots of people talk about, and it's been around, since the mid-90s. Microsoft thinks about unified communications beyond just how we tie everything together, and really now how we create intelligence in those experiences.
AI, machine learning, and just big data in general is fundamentally changing collaboration. And we see it inside of Teams to help users sort through what's most important, to bubble up what needs their attention.
Microsoft has made the decision to bring together Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams into a single hub that's part of our Office 365 suite.
We saw the power of Microsoft Teams in bringing teams together to communicate in a team environment. But we saw them also want to seamlessly communicate, being able to call and meet with those same people as they chat in Microsoft Teams. And there was a great opportunity to bring communications and collaborations together.
For one thing, it will simplify things for customers. Again, instead of having multiple tools to get their job done. They can do it in one place, one hub for teamwork. But I'd say it's more than that. What you're getting is the ability to use intelligent communications in a way you've never been able to do before.
For example, as you schedule meetings, we have the opportunity to recommend people who should attend the meeting based on other people in your project team or people that you've been chatting with about that topic.
People really want to have much more expressive communication. And one of the things that we've tried to do with collaboration in Teams is build in the set of features whereby a group that has adopted Teams, they enjoy working with each other more.
One thing that I've learned is that you should never underestimate the change management required when taking a customer from one environment to the next. And this is no exception. And we are committed to empower our customers with good information about this change.
We currently have about 100 million users in Office 365. And I'm very excited in terms of having every one of those users and those customers use Skype for Business and Teams together in this new solution.
There's no company better positioned to be able to take this moment forward and be able to really redefine the way that unified communications happen and bring this intelligent communications to life.
Well, there you have it. That is our vision for intelligent communications. Marc, I think it's so powerful that we can bring that vision to life for over 100 million active users on a monthly basis. So tell me how calling specifically can fit into that vision and what you see for calling.
Yeah, so I mean, Microsoft Teams is primarily a chat-based client, right, or it has been to date. And people are using text to communicate back and forth. And you know, as with all text sort of based mediums, you sort of hit certain boundaries with it, right? That's why we have emoji. When people are communicating back and forth, they can often misunderstand each other, or the intent of a conversation really isn't coming through. So, you know, you're doing smiley faces to try to diffuse tension that you may have built up. So calling is the modality that people tend to escalate to when they have to go solve a problem with the person, and that's really where the intense collaboration communications occur. It tends to be overlooked as a modality, and we think that it really is going to play a pivotal role in bringing teams together, making it easier, especially for dispersed teams, to collaborate together and to work in a much more efficient fashion. The intent of a conversation, the intent of emotion, all that comes through when you're using voice. And so with a call in particular, like there are these key opportunities for intelligent communications to really step in and augment a call, right? So one is in preparation of a call, like how do we get more information about who you're going to be talking to, make sure that all the information that you need is right there at your fingertips. While you're on the call, being able to capture that, right, and capture that transcript of what's occurring, maybe even synchronize your notes that you're taking to the call and to specific moments in the call so you can refer back to it. Or do like real-time translation, right, and be able to see those closed captions as the call unfolds. And then afterwards, the ability to come back to that call and review that transcript again, to search it, to be able to find specific information in it. And all that is just the beginning. It's capturing the contents of the call, but then you layer on top of that analytics, you layer entity extraction, sort of topical mapping, things like that, and you really can do a lot with it.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we jump right into it and let's show our audience the experience.
Yeah. So right now I think it's important to note that this is the first release. We literally just last week released all of our calling capabilities that we've been working on over the last year, and this is the foundational components of what we're going to be doing in the next year to really augment this vision. So that Microsoft Teams is all chat-based and text-based, but what you may not have seen yet is this calls tab that lights up now in the left-hand rail, and this is available to folks that have a calling plan. And when you tap into it, you can see that there's contacts available, there's history, there's voicemail, there's the basics of everything that you need for a calling client. So there's also a dial pad that's available too. And in contacts, we've created this sort of speed dial area where you can pin contacts that you call frequently, and in a single click you can go ahead and call them. We also have suggested contacts, and this is a place where intelligent communications is starting to peek in, but this is places where, or contacts that you have upcoming calls with. So you can sort of jump into, find out more information about those contacts if you need to, and pull up their contact cards and look at their organizational structures, things like that. We also bring in all the contacts on the external side. So if you have Outlook contacts, these get imported in, and so you can access your full list of contacts here. In the future, in the coming quarters, we're going to be migrating contacts from Skype for Business into Microsoft Teams too. So the contacts that you had will be available for you, and it'll become a richer and richer environment as we work with it. History includes everything that you would expect. So all the history capabilities, incoming calls, outgoing calls, missed calls, these all show up here. And voicemail is pulling from Exchange, so you can see all the voicemails that have been left for you. You can even click in and get a transcript of what the voicemail is, or play it back if you choose to. We of course have a dialer as well, and these are live dialers. So, for example, if I wanted to, let's say, order flowers for somebody, I could go ahead and hit 1-800-FLOWERS. Dial it, and it'll go ahead and ring through and connect in and place that call.
Welcome to 1-800-FLOWERS.com.
Pretty easy to use, pretty quick
if you're calling to place an order,
and fluid.
Yeah, so, and your history not only shows your calls outside of the network, but it also shows your voice over IP calls. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, it's both PSTN calls and VoIP. So yeah, they all show up in call history. Over time, call history will become a really rich environment, right? As we talk about the intelligent communications vision, this is the place where probably all of your transcripts will show up. You'll be able to step back into it, sort of review what happened on a previous call. And so all that data will be there for you.
Cool. Now, what do I need in order for a user to have access to PSTN calls?
Absolutely. So you need PSTN calling, obviously, through Microsoft. And
Now call calling plans.
Now call calling plans.
Yep.
And then you probably also need to do some configuration as far as setting up your Interop policies to be able to receive calls here. And in fact, I wanted to show you a couple of more features that we had built in that will demonstrate how sort of Interop works. So under settings, we haven't really shown this before, but under settings, there's a new calls tab. And that calls tab will have things like your call forwarding rules. So you can configure your calls to go directly to voicemail should you choose, or ring out to a cell phone. You can change your voicemail settings. You can do accessibility. So if you're hearing impaired, you can turn on TTY. And you can also block calls with anonymous call blocking. There's another thing here which is called preferred client application, and this really determines where you're going to receive your calls. So if you're using Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams on the same machine, you can run them side by side just like I am doing right now. And this particular setting will determine which application receives the call.
Right.
So for example, if you give me a call right now,
happy to do so.
I have it set to Microsoft Teams.
So I'm going to give you...
So you're Tiffany today, I see.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and accept that call. And now I'm going to call with you. You called me from Skype for Business.
I
So
did.
as you can see, this is an Interop call. So she's calling from Skype for Business into Microsoft Teams. So that call is taking place. And while not all the features are there, for example, screen sharing isn't available right now, we can still have that conversation. I can also do things like put you on hold, transfer you, access the keypad. All those functions are also available. So let's hang up there, and then let's just really quickly jump back to that settings view. So that was me receiving a call in Microsoft Teams. Now let's go ahead and say, for some reason, maybe I have an attendant console, or there's some feature that I really need in Skype for Business right now that Microsoft Teams doesn't support. So I can switch back to Skype for Business, and let's see, and go ahead and close that. And now you're going to go ahead and give me a call again.
Yep. So let me open my client. And oops, I accidentally closed this, so I'm going to open this.
Yeah, no problem. Right there. Got it.
All right. And I'm going to give you another call again. And let's see what happens.
Yeah, so you're calling me, and now you can see it's ringing in Skype for Business, right? So I can pick it up and handle the call from there.
Perfect.
So the setting is instantaneous. You can go ahead and just configure it right away and move the call around. And this is part of sort of Interop or the interoperability between Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams.
That's great. So organizations that are running Skype for Business and Teams and they have calling plans can now either, their users can choose which environment that they want their calls to show up.
Yeah, exactly.
And can IT admins control this on a tenant level?
Yeah, there's a IT policy now that we've introduced called Teams Interop policy, and that allows you to control it both at the per user level and tenant level. So as an IT administrator, you may go ahead and choose to select a set of people within your organization to trial Teams calling, for example. And you could go into that Teams Interop policy and just direct all their calls over to Microsoft Teams. And that would become their primary calling client at that moment. You could also go ahead and grant them user choice. And if you grant them user choice, then they'll be prompted in the next quarter, but they'll be prompted to make a choice about which client to choose. And it gives them some flexibility in being able to select which application is right for them.
Yeah, that's great, because not everyone wants to change everything all at once, right?
It takes time to adopt to these things, we know. Customers need to adopt things at their own pace.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Well, that's pretty simple in terms of what you can expect. If you have a calling plan from Office 365, you'll soon see this new calling icon, and then within that icon you can basically make a phone call and contact anyone internally or externally to your organization.
That's right.
So that's pretty simple. All right, so we have some information for you. So if you want to get started with Teams, you can easily get started today. If you go to teams.microsoft.com, that's where you can easily just start using Microsoft Teams. Or if you want some information on how to configure the Interop policies, we'll make that available to you. It's on our support documentation as well. So make sure that you check that out. All right, so we have a couple of questions coming in from the live Q&A, and the first question is about desk phone support.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working on a plan right now to make sure that all the IP phones that are available and that have been certified for Skype for Business will also work with Microsoft Teams. So they'll support the basic calling capabilities that will be present. And I think later on in the year, we'll also be rolling out some sort of new capabilities that will really be designed for Microsoft Teams and desk phones as well. So there should be some exciting announcements around that coming.
That's perfect. So users can be confident to know that our Skype for Business certified devices will work with Teams, and then we'll have a next wave of devices coming out.
That's right.
That's awesome. One question that we have here is, where are Teams contacts stored, and how do they integrate with Skype for Business contacts?
Right. So Teams contacts are stored in a user shard in Exchange. So we capture all those contacts and we store them there and have a store that's available. It's hidden in a hidden Exchange folder, so you won't see it show up in Outlook, but they're all stored there.
Perfect. So that's the benefit of being completely integrated with Office 365. So your email contacts are not disaggregated or separate from your calling contacts.
That's correct.
Perfect. The third question that we have is around hybrid voice. What is our plan for hybrid voice with Teams?
Right. So a very popular configuration for Skype for Business is to have CCE, or OPCH. And so these are configurations in which you can use your trunk that's on-prem with your sort of online calling workload. So with Microsoft Teams, while we don't support CCE today, and we don't support the hybrid voice implementations that we've released for Skype for Business, we are working on a different solution called Direct Connect that is actually in the process of being trialed right now. So we're going into dog fooding. But that will be available later on in the year, and customers should look forward to a TAP program probably associated with that and be able to experiment with it. One of the great things about it is that it doesn't really rely CCE required you to have some hardware that was installed, so there's a capital expenditure associated with it. But with Direct Connect, that hardware requirement is removed, so you can connect directly to the cloud, which will be a great feature. I think it'll really help.
Perfect. And lastly, when is a good time for me to start adopting calling in Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think right now, as you've seen from the capabilities that we demonstrated, we've put in the foundation for calling, right? So if you have a basic information sort of calling workload that you need to supply to your users, you can do that through Microsoft Teams today, and you'll be able to place calls anywhere in the world and receive them and really have your own dedicated phone number, et cetera. As if you're, let's say, a delegate or an administrator, and you need to be able to take calls on behalf of other users. Those types of features, the more advanced enterprise workload features, are going to be coming in the next couple of quarters. And so those will light up, and those will get you into a position where you can actually deploy this much broader and really have everybody within your enterprise start using Microsoft Teams. For now, I would say, don't wait. You can jump on Teams calling right now for information workers and start using it. So yeah.
Perfect. That's you've heard it from the source. Don't wait. Start now, and get to start using Microsoft Teams. Well, that's it for today's episode. We're out of time, but I do want to make sure that we give you a couple announcements. We are going on break for the holiday break, so wherever you are, we want to wish you a happy holidays, you and your family. Make sure that you guys have spent time with each other, and so we're going to go spend time with our families as well. But when we come back in the new year, we're going to make a few changes. We're going to announce some changes, so stay tuned for those changes, and we look forward to bringing back Teams on Air to you next year. So see you next year.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye.